carrying on talking about Uta Frith's amazing article that I 100% agree with. It has given me more for confidence to talk about overdiagnosis of autism, which I've wanted to talk about for a long time, but being able to quote Uta Frith directly has given me an extra ammo. It's really good to get found this article. So the original cases that she observed were obviously profoundly autistic people. These are really, really profound, completely locked into their own world. They can't even, they can't even, like, have a conversation with someone at all. They're so profoundly autistic, they can't even have a conversation with someone. They can't even talk. They often engage in self-injurious behaviour, completely locked in. They can't learn normally, they spend a lot of time just flapping or stimming and things like that. That was classic, prototypical, profound autism. But they've been completely lost because of neurodiversity. And while it was good that, as I talked about in a previous video, while it was good that autism was broadened to include other very disabled people who weren't the classic presentation, because there are lots of people, like me, who are actually very disabled, but obviously we're not classically autistic, but we do still have a form of autism, hence Asperger's, that really impairs our ability to make relationships. We're not like people with classic autism. We can kind of appear superficially more like, we can come across normal, in inverted commas, and that's because it's more an invisible disability for people like me, but it's still a disability. It's just that because we're so verbal, it can kind of hide the impairment. But the impairment is still there, the autism is still there, and the autism is the fact that we find it so hard to affiliate and empathise with other people. That is part of my impairment, my original impairment, which was picked up on when I was at primary school, and was, and all the things I'll be talking to you about, all those reports that were done showed all these cognitive impairments, the fact I couldn't empathise, the fact I struggled with comprehension, the fact I couldn't understand plots, the fact that I couldn't make friends or interact properly, and those soft neurological signs like walking on tiptoes and like being in my own little world and stuff like that. It was all very classic Asperger's. Classic before NDM watered it down, because now Asperger's doesn't mean a thing anymore. Literally does not mean a thing. It really doesn't, because of these super able people. I've had to readdress how I talk about my Asperger's now, because if I talk about it, people confuse me with people like Melanie Sykes, and clearly I'm completely different to people like that, who I'd argue aren't even properly autistic anyway. So what we're talking about here is, so I was just saying, as Uta Frith's original case studies were really profound autism, and that was back in the 40s, 50s, it was the 60s when she did her research, and Asperger's came along a bit later. To denote another impaired group that were different but impaired in different ways, basically. So she says, we've reached a point where some are now being falsely diagnosed. I'd actually agree with that. It's not PC to say it. I don't give a crap. Melanie Sykes, I think, is falsely diagnosed. Christine McGuinness, I think, is falsely diagnosed. I even know some people that I seriously wonder, are they really autistic? They have really successful lives. They can raise... I'm not saying people with autistic people can't have kids, like some truly disabled, impaired people do have kids, and I know some who do. For all sorts of reasons people can have kids. It doesn't in and of itself, people have kids for all sorts of reasons. Some people, because they get autism, end up in abusive relationships, for example, and end up having kids like that, but they often need a lot of support to raise them and stuff. So it's not impossible. You can have kids and be autistic, and it is possible for some to have relationships, like particularly if one of the partner's mother's a good person or father's a good person. It's usually the man, though, being mothered by a woman, and basically if a woman's doing everything for him. And I think it might be a bit easier to be autistic a male, because that's more likely to happen. So I'm not saying you can't be in a relationship with being autistic. It's not like that. What I am saying is it makes it a hell of a lot harder, but you wouldn't know that by some of these people who are in successful marriages. And not only that, it's the whole picture though. They're in marriages, they have kids, and they have a really successful career. And not only that, they have loads of friends, and they're completely different to people like me. It's absolutely ridiculous. Completely different. And it just completely takes the mickey that these people are getting diagnosed autistic, when there's essentially, they might have other conditions like mental health problems and things like that. But some of them, and so I agree with Uta Frith when she says some are now being falsely diagnosed. I wouldn't say just some, I say many are actually. And she also says some might exhibit superficially autistic-like traits without being autistic. Some might suffer from an as yet unrecognised and unnamed syndrome. So some of them might actually have something going on. Some of them might have an impairment, but it may well not be autism. That's the thing. Because autism should always be about a social impairment. If you can have loads of friends and have a relationship and like manage like loads of stuff like a normal person. Is that really autism? Because autism's meant to be like really quite serious. And if you could do all that without support, you know what I mean? I mean, if you know what I mean? I mean, that's the thing. And this results in heaping ever more cases onto your autism spectrum. She says, if you can't find a common features, then the current criteria is absolutely useless. We need subgroups, she says. Completely agree with her. We need subgroups with shiny new labels. You know, if they found a subtype for my particular version, if I went and had a brain scan and or whatever, if they found a subgroup for people like me with my particular manifestations, I would be more than happy to take on a new label if it better helped me access support, because I'm not an identity person. It's not about, I didn't get diagnosed for identity or vanity reasons. I actually put off getting diagnosed for a really long time. The only reason I got diagnosed was I needed support, because I can't have relationships and I can't work because I'm proper disabled. And I don't care whether it's called autism or cat syndrome or whatever. I don't give a crap what it's called. The fact of the matter is, if it helps me get support. So basically, if I don't know, scientists like Uta Frith or whatever in future find a subgroup or even if it's a completely different condition but it fits what I have, I wouldn't mind changing a name, because the name to me is irrelevant. I'm not like these neurodiversity people who jump on autism like it's some special identity and badge of honour. Because I'm disabled, I've got more important things to think about. So that's what she says. And she says, by the way, we need 3 levels. She talks about 3 levels of impairment, okay? By the way, I actually, in a way, hope they do find a subtype with a different name for people like me, because then I can get out of this neurodiversity thing and they can't speak for me anymore. Because autism doesn't mean anything anymore. It's almost a shameful word now, because it literally doesn't mean what it used to mean. So, so she talks about 3 levels, okay? Biological, cognitive, behavioural. Okay, this is basic science. Cognitive is the mental processes. Subgroups at cognitive level. She says we need to look for subgroups at the cognitive level, because that's at the top of the impairment ladder. You have to begin at the cognitive, because that's what predicts behaviour, okay? Subgroups at cognitive level. There's going to be a faulty mechanism in part of the brain that can then predict behaviour. She says how it rises from a brain abnormality and how it influences behaviour. That's what we need to look for. Because the cognitive deficit explains why there is an impairment in behaviour. So, a mentalising deficit, theory of mind for example, at the cognitive level is categorical. You either have it or you don't have it. Basically. Simple as. However, at behavioural level, this is dimensional, because there are scores on tests and you might score higher or lower. Someone might be more or less impaired in that. So there are dimensions within categories. And the low scores indicate impairment. Same behaviour, this is really important by the way, because same behaviour can have different causes. So for example, a shy person and an autistic may both dislike social contact, but the shy person dislikes social contact out of anxiety, and the autistic inability to mentalise. That's a key differentiation between the two. I wasn't shy at all growing up, by the way. I'm not particularly shy even now, otherwise I wouldn't be doing these videos. I'm not a shy person. My issues for not liking to be around people are quite simply, I don't really have that great social motivation. And mentalising essentially. I don't understand other people. It's hard work. And things that are hard work, you tend not to want to do a lot of. Quite simply, I'm not shy at all. If anything, when I was a kid, I was completely active but odd and very inappropriate. I would actually approach complete random people in the street. So we need to be sceptical, she says, of self-reported behavioural traits. Hence, we need to be sceptical of all these self-diagnosed people, because basically a lot of them are just basically narcissists, just wanting identity labels, basically. I'm not saying all of them are, some of them may well be genuine, but going by what I see on social media, where a lot of them don't even have any clinically significant impairment socially, you have to wonder. And you can't easily go backwards from behavioural level. You can't, that's absurd. You can't go from behaviour to cognition. That's treacherous, because behaviour can be caused by different things, by radically different things. The only way you can know what's what is by starting at the cognitive. and then we predict behaviour from there. So there could be one subgroup, she says, where there's a problem in mentalising, and another there might be a problem in affiliation. I definitely have a problem in affiliation as part of my problem. I do struggle with mentalising, but particularly affiliation and mentalising. So it's kind of like a double whammy for me. But obviously I'd like this to be further checked out, you know, and I'd be more than happy to have someone like Uta Frith give me tests and other things to work out what's what. But obviously I think they tend to do that I'm not on a more like on a research level as opposed to plucking individuals like me off the street. But if some doctor wanted to do that, I'd be more than happy to oblige, because I'm a science person and I like to know things. And she's again, this needs to be validated obviously by brain anatomy. I'd love to have a brain scan, because this obviously all starts as hypotheses, you know. She said also you can be more than one deficit in the same individual. So we need to shrink the overstretched category of autism, diagnostic category of autism, and she said we can start by doing this by defining subgroups. We need well-developed phenotypes, and we need to do better studies of the causes of autism, because this improves support. Thank you for watching.